Sepulveda via Colorado at 50. But again, they're all pretty darn close to one another. Where the projects or where the alternatives really started to be different from one another was in the area of cost. And you can see the two using the old right-of-way come in about $600,000, a little more than $600,000 less than the two using Venice Sepulveda. A very simple reason for that. On Venice and Sepulveda, because those roads are so busy and there's no room to put the tracks, we had to build a lot of aerial structure, a lot of bridge down the center of those streets, and that's expensive construction. In terms of the comments that we got during that 2-month comment period last winter, we got over 9,200 individual comments from citizens like yourselves, from public officials, from different agencies like Fish and Wildlife or LADOT or other agencies. The comments, not surprisingly, kind of went into a few principal areas. And they are listed there. Certainly, we got a lot of support for the right-of-way Colorado alternative. We got a lot of comments on traffic and parking, grade crossing issues, on-street parking, noise and vibration is always a concern on transit projects, and a lot of folks who were concerned about safety, the location of the maintenance facility, and including most folks who commented really wanted to make sure the bikeways stayed in the project. In the environmental impact report, we looked at these, what we call resource areas. And this is the way that the California Environmental Quality Act sort of looks at the natural environment. Are you impacting water quality? Are you impacting fish and wildlife or things like that? And sort of the community environment. Are there issues of noise and vibration or safety and security? Are you displacing a lot of people from their homes or businesses? Socioeconomics. So and what are the construction impacts of the various alternatives? So it's a way that we can, through the technical analysis, look at the impact not just on the natural environment, air quality, water quality, things like that, but also how it affects the community, how it affects people. One of the, and I'm just going to focus on a couple of those where we got the most comments and where we think the most interest is. When we do the final environmental impact report, we'll of course address all of those resource areas. But in the limited time we have tonight, I'm going to try and focus on some of the key ones. Certainly one of the most discussed issues is the whole question of traffic, transportation, and grade crossings. There's basically two ways when a light rail line goes along that it crosses a street. You either cross the street at the same level as the street is today, like any intersection that you might go through, Military and Pico, for example, or you go over or under that street, either a bridge or an underpass. And in the environmental impact report, what we're trying to do is look at two areas of potential impact. One is by using the Metro grade crossing policy, and this is a policy adopted by the Metro Board of Directors in 2003. We kind of look at the safety impacts or the safety risk of crossing a street at grade. And I'll tell you flat out that the preferred alternative, the default alternative, is to cross at grade, but only if we can do it safely. The second thing that we look at down the bottom is environmental issues. Are we significantly degrading the traffic flow, the level of service, through nearby intersections, or are we creating significant additional delay to the cars that are out there, or going to be out there in 2030, which is the year that we're studying? All of that ties together by doing these traffic studies that we coordinate with the Department of Transportation, both in LA and Santa Monica and Culver City for this particular project. And we look at ways to do traffic and roadway engineering to make those crossings safe and effective. If we can't, then we do the grade separation. In California, the way that the process works is we do our studies now and make our recommendations and that'll be part of our final environmental impact report that we present in January. At the end of the day, though, in California, the California Public Utilities Commission has final authority over whether overall issues of transit service, but in this case, over whether we can actually cross a street at grade or not. And we've been working with the California Public Utilities Commission technical staff to ensure that we're taking the proper steps so that they hopefully will approve what we're recommending, but we won't know that until we go through that process. Now, I want to take just a minute to sort of explain with this graphic here just what I meant by those safety issues. So if you look at the screen on your left, you can see a rail line that's going, let's just say it's going north and south, and you've got a street that's going east and west, and to the east of the rail line there's an intersection. So we worry about, in this grade crossing analysis, under the grade crossing policy, we worry about at least two things. One is for the blue cars that are stopped at a gate, so they're waiting for a train to cross. You can see that they are backed up across that intersection. So the queue of cars, while they wait for that 40 seconds for the train to cross, there's enough traffic so they're backing up across that intersection. That's a safety hazard to us that we don't want to happen. The other safety hazard that we worry about is illustrated with the green line of cars. Those cars are stopped at a red light at that intersection, and you can see they're backing up across the rail line, so that if a train were to come along now, that second to last car is stopped on the rail line and trapped there. And we don't want that to happen either. So if we find in our studies that either of these situations are happening, we try to develop solutions to prevent that from happening. And there's a lot of choices to do that. The other thing that we're concerned about on sort of the environmental side, if you turn your attention to the intersection where those two blue cars are sort of across it there, is are we, with our rail line, adding enough traffic and delay to significantly degrade the throughput, the level of service in that intersection? Are we really slowing the cars down so that the intersection gets significantly worse than it would be otherwise? So those are the two things that we look at, and that's what has driven our recommendations at the various streets that we cross on the project. When we did the draft environmental impact report, there were 5 grade crossings where our recommendations were different than, were at odds with LADOT. And those are the ones that you see here. And I want to take just a minute to talk about what we've done since last winter to bring along our studies and in some cases change our recommendations. At Overland Avenue, DOT was worried about the amount of delay that would occur if we did an at-grade crossing and the safety issues. So we went back and did additional traffic counts. We also looked at a broader area, so we broadened our study area from Pico to the north, actually just a little bit past Pico, all the way to National, to where the 10 freeway ramps are, and looked at that entire link and did a series of traffic studies and simulations. We also considered the fact that DOT has a project that they're going forward with now to widen the Overland Bridge over the 10 freeway. They're adding a 3rd lane in the northbound direction. We also did updated counts of pedestrians near the Overland School to make sure that our safety measures were in fact sufficient. And we still believe that the proper solution there is to do an at-grade crossing. We believe, based on our meetings with DOT, that they concur with that recommendation. At Westwood Boulevard, there we were recommending an at-grade crossing, but we were taking a fair bit of on-street parking as well as some of the liquid amber trees. We've gone through there and have tried to really refine that design and have reduced both the number of on-street parking spaces that we would need to take. We've also limited some of that taking to only the daytime hours, so a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. prohibition on the north side of the street, permitting overnight parking. And we've also reduced the number of trees there. At Sepulveda, based on the additional studies that we've done, we looked at adding another lane in the northbound direction, and that's part of our project now. But because of some of the development that's going on there, that may be going on there, and because of a desire for some access into that development